Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Everyman's Arsenal, a podcast where we take a look behind the scenes at your favorite influencers or gear company brand managers, things like that. And today we have, well, my favorite libertarian, but your favorite libertarian as well. Nate, welcome to the
Hey,
show.
hey, it's me, possibly your favorite libertarian.
Well, I joke about this with Joe a lot because Joe has won 1911, and we were talking about it, I think, on the podcast or on the live chat. It was like, well, if you only have one, then isn't it your worst 1911? He's like, you shut your mouth. So if you're the only libertarian that people know, then you're their favorite libertarian
By default.
by default. I appreciate you taking some time and hanging out with me tonight and doing this podcast with us. I
Thanks for
know
having me.
I'd sent you, yeah, man. I'd sent you some questions ahead of time just to kind of peruse and kind of give us some talking points of what we want or what I'd like to get through and get to know you a little bit more and have our viewers get to know you a little bit more. And the first thing that always comes to mind whenever I'm interviewing folks is, your background and just a little bit more about yourself, so myself and viewers or listeners can learn a little bit more about your favorite libertarian, my favorite libertarian.
Yeah, I mean, I can when I saw that question, I was like, well, I guess in what context do you want my background? Because I'm into a lot of stuff. I'm not just into like the gun stuff or the YouTube gun YouTuber stuff. So I could start like with my background in shooting and training, or uh, kind of like my
Um,
whatever you want to know about. But yeah, I guess
well, I'm
let me know.
curious about, if someone asked me that question, this is something I used to do in the military where we'd go in front of boards and or we'd prep for interviews, and I would always tell the troops that I was supervising, I would say, this is what I'd recommend: write out a paragraph, less than 60 seconds, and it's just about like, what do you want to include in that 60 seconds, and then read it over and over and memorize it, because usually one of the first questions that would happen in an interview, or if you'd be presented before a board for a promotion or something like that, they would always ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself. And so what is it that you want to share with this panel of people or whoever's interviewing you for a new job, or in this case YouTube? Like, what is it that you that matters the most to you, your father, your husband, libertarian at heart, your love of the country or of the Constitution? Like, if you were to take a 60-second snapshot of what's important to Nate, what would you share with people?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to go in order, I'd say my identity first and foremost is in Christ. So I'm a Christian first and foremost, and then uh, I guess if I was going in a tiered list, I'd say family man. So faith, family, and then freedom would be, you know, right in there, and just just being in America, having the blessed fortune of being born in America. I know your last podcast, which was awesome, that I never miss a podcast that you do. Uh, you were talking about your family, previous generations coming to America. The last guest you had on, bonbons and guns.
Yeah.
She also came from another country, so I just won the lottery and happened to be born here. So I have religious freedom. I have a lot more freedom than a lot of other countries have, and citizens of other countries have. And I'm just trying to do my best on the platform of YouTube and other platforms to uh, help prepare people, one, to just be self-sufficient, because in self-sufficiency comes a lot of freedom. If you aren't dependent on other entities, whether that's government or otherwise, for basic things, then you're going to be a lot harder to control, and you're going to be a lot freer. So, yeah, I'd say, I guess, like, yeah, my background would be Um, Politically, I started out as a Republican just because I am a Christian. I have conservative values. So, yeah, I was like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure there's only two parties. So it's either Republican or Democrat. And then I found out later, I was like, oh, wait, there's, I don't have to pick the lesser of two evils. I can just pick something that actually like aligns with my values. And that was, for me, libertarianism. And it was something that I just kind of found out about through just research and just looking more into history. And I just was like, hey, this seems like more aligned with what I want. It's not really I wouldn't say it's not really a radical idea. It's kind of
Yeah.
like if you are a constitutionalist, you're probably a libertarian. If you've read the Constitution, that's a good sign. You might be a libertarian. Most politicians, it seems like, have not read the Constitution. So yeah, it's just a matter of I want to be free, and I want the role of the government to be this big, so that the role and the freedom of the individual can be this big.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. I think some people, myself included, as I was kind of growing up politically, I think of libertarianism as, I'm sorry, nowadays I was like you, like I didn't really know much about it, but nowadays I look at libertarianism or libertarians as the party of leave us alone, right? Like we're not going to bother you.
Yeah.
We just ask that you don't bother us either. Like very fiscally conservative and kind of socially liberal. Um, and I agree with you. I think if people really took time and thought of themselves and what are the core things that they believe in, they probably would think of libertarianism as less radical than what they might think of it now.
Yeah, when I explain what I as I like one of my very first videos for the channel was what is libertarianism, what is a libertarian? And I had a lot of people, like even in just my own close circles of friends and family, say, I'm a liberal. Like they just found out that they were a libertarian. They're like, wait, I'm a libertarian.
Yeah,
Most of them thought that they were Republicans or some type of Tea Party or whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm a libertarian. Okay, that makes sense. But it was just
yeah,
such a foreign concept, and a lot of people, for some reason, liken it to an anarchist. Like, oh, you don't
yeah,
want any rules. No, we still want a government, but we want a really, really, really small government.
right.
The
Yeah,
federal government and state governments still have roles to play, but they're supposed to be working for us. We're not supposed to be enslaved to them.
right. Yeah, and especially in today's day and age, when you look at a deficit or a debt that's climbing above $33 trillion, maybe even close to $34 trillion. I haven't looked at it in a while. Um, and we talk about this a lot, and I in my family where I remember when President Obama was campaigning, and he had brought up George Bush, and he said, I think at the time the debt was like $9 trillion, and he was like, George Bush, what he would do is he would take out, and I'm paraphrasing, like he would take out the credit card of China, and he'd just start charging, and that's on the heads of every man, woman, and child in this country, and that's wrong. And I was like, yeah, I agree with him. That's absolutely correct. That is wrong, right? And so there's you for me, I kind of sided with President Obama at the time, like that is wrong. We shouldn't be burdened, our future generation shouldn't be burdened like that. But then you look at what he did during his presidency, and by the time he left, the debt was $20 trillion. It was double what it started off as, and it's just gone progressively worse and worse and worse as we've gone. So this idea of a small government seems very foreign, especially to folks that, if you've only been alive for the last 30 years, all you know is big government.
And
Really?
that's a big part of the problem. Like the public, the, I could go on it could be a whole podcast just about the public school system. But um, yeah, the what's taught in public schools now is not history. It's there's
Yeah.
no historical emphasis in school now. There's like social studies, which is, like a
Right.
watered down kind of whatever, but it's not talking about the founding of our country anymore.
Yeah.
They're not. I've even seen in some history books where they've paraphrased the Second Amendment, where they've changed the wording of the Second Amendment to something other than what it actually is.
Yeah.
And that's a textbook in schools at the high school level. So
Right.
there's people graduating high school. There's kids today graduating college. College is even worse, and they have no concept of what their rights are. They have no concept of what how this country was founded. And
Right.
if you would look at the founding fathers, most, if not all, some were more federalists. Obviously, if you look at the Federalist
Right.
Papers, uh, but the majority of them would be considered libertarians today.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I had a road trip with my daughter. We flew out to Colorado and purchased a car, and then we drove for 3 days back: Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Oregon, Washington. And part of the drive back, we stopped by, I forgot the name of the town now, but it's a small town where Doc Holliday's buried. And I was really excited. Like, I wanted to stop here. I remember reading about the OK Corral and kind of the Wild West. Like, that was part of the history classes that I took growing up. And so I'm talking to my daughter about Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp and the shootout at the OK Corral and just the Wild West. And we got into all sorts of cool stuff. And my daughter, who's in high school, she's a sophomore, she was like, this is amazing. Why don't they teach us this at school? And I think part of that, and I think this is where some people might have this idea that homeschooling is bad. And I don't agree with that. Even though I don't homeschool my kids, I have in the past, I don't now. I do think that the idea is, yes, public school is not, I'm not going to say it's great, but as a parent, I should be responsible enough to know what's being taught to my kids and to supplement the things that I think the public school is missing out on. Now, the parents that want to take it a step further and homeschool their kids and really hammer down on the things that they feel is most important, hats off to them. I don't have the patience for that. So I think there's a lot of people like me that use public schools as kind of a crutch. And I think when I was growing up in public school, it used to be, if I did something wrong, it was the parents and the teachers against me. Like, why are you failing? And nowadays it's parents and the kids against the teacher. Like, why are you failing to teach the kids? And I feel bad for teachers because they're given this criteria that they have to teach. And you're absolutely right. It's not real history. It's watered down. um, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're looking at what the most important jobs are, it's not an NFL player, it's not a celebrity, it's the people that teach our children, medical professionals. Obviously, that's kind of important. You go to the hospital, you want them to know
To be
what they're
good at their
doing. Um, but yeah, I mean, and they're making what, like, not even a living wage.
right.
So, and they're having to buy their own school supplies, like nothing. If you think about how grossly mismanaged the budget is on a state level, on a federal level, if we just took like let's just say one third of the foreign aid that we're giving out to other countries that hate us, and we invested that in the school system, we might be able to get some history books that are historic, or
Yeah.
might be able to employ the best and brightest teachers possible and pay them something that they could actually live off. They don't have to get like a part-time job as well as
Right.
teaching our children. But as far as our family, we homeschool our children. When not sure what I'm allowed to say because it's YouTube, but when the pandemic kicked off,
Yeah.
we saw a lot of really wild things happening in the public school system. One of which was masking, which I could go on a whole tirade of why that's horrible for developing young minds. Uh, and we also saw the stuff ushered in, like critical race theory and gender politics and all that nonsense. So I think at the time, our oldest was in second grade. Our youngest was just starting maybe the second year of preschool. And at the time, the age limits for when you had to have a mask, like the age you had to, he was like, my youngest was well under. And I even talked to the principal of the school before, talked to his teacher. I said, if I pick my son up and he's wearing a mask, I'm pulling him out. And this is like, you have to pay for it. It's preschool. It's not like,
Yeah.
public school where you're forced under coercion to pay taxes, and those taxes then pay for the schooling you don't want.
Yeah.
So I was, yeah, we'll pull him out, and we'll basically pull the funding, right, for this child, and you won't get that money. And they're like, okay, yeah. First day I picked him up, he was wearing a mask. I was like, all right, we're out, we're done. So we pulled him out, and my eldest son, he had really bad sleep apnea, so he had like adenoids removed
Oh,
and
okay.
tonsils and all that stuff. Sleep studies, they're like, wow, it's a miracle that he's actually sleeping at all. Like most of the time, he's just trying to breathe, like he's waking up because he's having to breathe. So he had like a respiratory thing. So we were able to get an exemption when he was at public school, so he didn't have to wear a mask. He was the only kid in the class that didn't have a mask. And that, being at that age and like wanting to fit in, but
Right.
feeling bad that he wasn't also having to suffer the same things that his fellow students were suffering. Like you could just tell everyone at the school was like a grade behind at least because of how poorly the virtual learning stuff was going when they were not in school, and then when they were in school they were only in school for so long, and then they had to be way far apart, no one could see anybody's face. Yeah, so that and all the socialism propaganda stuff being pushed at them, and these kids are in second grade, like it was just child abuse. So yeah, we pulled him out as well. We looked into homeschooling. We found a ton of resources, and my wife now homeschools both our boys, along with her having a part-time job. She works at a pregnancy clinic, so she's it's a Christian organization. They basically provide resources to unexpected mothers that are trying to figure out what they're going to do. And so
Yeah.
she's an ultrasound. She's in ultrasounds. She's a diagnostic medical sonographer is the official term, but so she does that and homeschools our kids. So my wife's basically a saint. She's got
Rock
two
star.
young boys that she's homeschooling, and she does
Yeah.
that. So
Well, and it's interesting too because I think one of the things that I heard a lot when we were homeschooling was that how bad it was for the kids because they don't have social interaction and they're going to be socially awkward. And then you look at what happened during the Kung Flu, and it was like,
nice.
well, you're forcing social distancing, you're forcing social awkwardness. Like
Yeah.
now, all of a sudden, the science says that social awkwardness is okay. It's okay to be by yourself and not do anything with anyone else. And so I feel like that argument kind of went out the window. So we went back to homeschooling, and my son, who's he's going to be a freshman, he actually was the one that was like, I want to go back to public school. Like I miss my friends, and I and he does great. He does great in the public school setting, but I love that my kids, the ones that were old enough to kind of have that reasoning ability, could articulate why they wanted to. And this kind of goes back to something that you said really early on in this podcast, talking about kind of the history of the country and learning more about our founding fathers. One of the lessons that I had with my kids one time was that I want them, when they leave the home, I want them to be able to question everything. And there's a quote from Thomas Jefferson, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it. Basically, he says, "Question with boldness, even the very existence of God. For if there is a God, He would much rather you doubt Him and find out through questioning that He exists than to blindly follow Him." And sometimes it's tough with kids because sometimes like that military mindset is like, you will do what I want you to do because I'm your parent and I tell you what to do, and trying to pair that with this okay, I want them to be avid questioners. I want them to ask questions, and I don't want to shut that down. And so finding that good balance has been somewhat of a struggle for me as a parent. But I'm always very proud of my kids when they can look at a situation and through their own logic and reasoning can come to a conclusion that they can then explain to me. I feel like I won as a parent when they're able to do that. And there's no social awkwardness. I mean, we homeschooled for years. Um, I don't know. I think my son is just regularly awkward. So, um, but what are you going to do? Really quick, totally change the subject. Just of his awkwardness, I think you'll get a kick out of this. He was waiting for me to pick him up after school one day, and he hopped in my car, and he was like, "This girl asked me for my number." So he's 13. And I was like, "Really? What happened?" He said, "She came up to him, she held her phone out to him, and she said, 'Can I get your number?'" I was like, "What'd you do?" And he's like, "I looked her right in the eye and I said, 'No.'" I go, "Why did you do that? Was she she cute or what?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Why didn't you get her number, or why didn't you give her your number?" He goes, "I don't know my number."
Okay.
That was his reason. So instead of telling her, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know my number, but maybe, can I get your number," or something like that. He was just like, "Can I get your number?" "No, you can't." "Why not?" "Because I don't know it." So he's just regularly awkward.
She's at home crying somewhere right now. So,
Um,
so
yeah,
rejected.
I got rejected by this awkward kid at school.
It's all just a big
Um,
misunderstanding.
yeah, so this is really cool because learning more about, I mean, just hearing you talk about your experiences taking your kids out of public school and homeschooling and kind of your background, it kind of makes sense. The whole YouTube channel, Your Favorite Libertarian. What was it before all this that kind of got you onto the path of libertarianism? Was that before marriage, after marriage? Is this something like you and your wife kind of came to this understanding together, or was it a individual journey?
Yeah, I mean, growing up with conservative values, I was kind of, almost there, right? I just didn't know enough really. And I think a lot of times as people get older, they start, even if they're like raised as raging liberals, and they grew up in a household where they're like, if someone breaks in, we're just going to have a conversation with them and hopefully change their mind before we're
Yeah.
whatever they were going to do, they're going to do. And they just, we just talk it out. Um, so even people as they get older that, are on that side of the spectrum politically, as they get older, as they see what the government's doing, it's basically, you get old enough to start not trusting the government as much. And then you
Hmm.
like, as that progresses, as you get older, as things happen in your life, you kind of start leaning more towards the conservative side, even if you're not originally. But I grew up in a Christian household. We had conservative values, so that wasn't really anything that was that big of a stretch for me. Also, when I started shooting guns and owning guns, that was another big push in that direction. Because at first, when I started shooting guns, I was probably maybe say like beginning of high school. We didn't really we weren't like a big gun household or anything. My dad had one, but you never saw it. It was just like his dad's that he had, and he didn't even
Yeah.
have it like loaded in the nightstand or anything. It was just in case I need it, I guess it's there. But he never went shooting or anything. So I started going to a private school, a Lutheran private school. Had made friends there, and one of my friends, who's still my best friend to this day, I've known him since second grade. His whole family, he's been hunting since he was like 5 or 6. Shooting shotguns, shooting birds out of the air, and all sorts of other stuff. They were big into that culture. Spent a lot of time with him. I started going to a junior NRA rifle league, so
Okay.
22 long range rifle, target competition style. The four positions. and then was also on the skeet and trap team for that sporting club that they were a part of and they were members of. And that's when I really just started shooting guns, and I just loved shooting guns. There was no political affiliation with it. It wasn't because they're my rights,
Right.
thing like that. It was just I just really like shoot. It was just really fun. So got into that, and through the firearm safety aspect of it, through shooting guns, I eventually started uh, buying my own guns and doing that for fun. And eventually, when I turned 21, was when I started getting more serious about the self defense side of shooting. So I always just did it because it was fun and I was good at it, and it was just something cool to do with my buddies. But
Yeah.
once I turned 21, got my in my state's a CPL, so concealed pistols license. They really want to make sure it's not a weapons thing because then they're like, well, you can't carry this or this or this or this, just pistols with this. So yeah, I got my CPL at 21, started carrying, and I did that. Like I shot at the range a bunch, but I didn't really uh, do any other training other than like I'd go to the flat range and shoot, and I'd carry the gun, but that and maybe like practice draws and stuff in front of the mirror,
Yeah.
like taxi driver. But then after that, I think it was probably when I moved to I was in I got I'm talking to you because I know you, so there's stuff that I would tell you, but I'm not going to tell the whole internet. So I'm like trying to
No, that's
edit
fine.
the story real time. So I'm not like I was in this exact location and then I moved to this exact location. Um, yeah, even my state, like I don't really give out that information. You can maybe kind of tell in some of the videos, but um, part of being a
Well,
libertarian is I'm very private. But yeah, I moved to another place, met some new neighbors, and they were into training. One was prior Marine, former Marine, however you say that. I'm not in the military, so I don't know how you say it, but um, he was a Marine, and my other buddy was or is a I want to make sure I say it right, a reserve sheriff
okay.
for the county that we're in. So they were into training classes. Like, hey, we're doing this one training class. It was called "You Suck, It's Not the Gun." So like very entry level, just basic pistol class, just fundamentals, accuracy, and just getting
Yeah.
like super super laser accurate with your gun, and very slow rate of fire, slow pace. So it was a really good introductory into like your first. Not just your CPL class where they're like, okay, shoot that pie plate a couple times. All right, here's your card. So I did that, and that was I got the training bug, and then I really started getting more into like like home defense and defense of like immediate vicinity and neighborhood and community and red dawn
Yeah.
type stuff. And that's when I really started getting more and even before that too, started getting more into the the constitutionality of what it means to be a gun owner, all that stuff. And if you read the Constitution, it's pretty hard not to become a libertarian or something like it. Just
Yeah.
understanding what your rights are, and then once you actually read what your rights are and you see what the government's doing, and local, state, everywhere, and just in general, you start realizing how much your rights are under attack on a daily basis, especially the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is probably that, and the First Amendment are probably the most under attack that they've ever been in the history
Right.
of the nation. So when you start looking at that, it really pushes you that way to
Right.
being more. I wouldn't necessarily say more dug into your beliefs, but just understanding that it needs to be a bit more over in the spectrum than just
Yeah.
like yeah, I vote straight party ticket, and I that guy, at least that guy's not that guy. Ugh.
Right. Well, and I love one of the things that you just said that I share with my family or and friends, like people in my neighborhood. I always tell them, I'll say, how much do you think your vote has in swaying what happens in DC? Zero. Now, how much sway do you think your vote has in Olympia, Washington? Like next to zero?
Mine's zero because I don't live there.
Right, right, right. But so I'm telling people local, I'm like, but how much of an effect can you have on your school board or on your city council? Or if you're in an HOA, like your HOA presidency, like why don't we focus more on our homes and our communities than focusing on what's happening in DC or even in our state capitals? Like I really do feel like if we can get our homes in order and we can get our communities in order, then the rest of the pieces kind of fall into place. Like
Absolutely.
that gives us a good foundation that we can build off of, and I hate to use like military terms, but then branch out or attack out from there. Let's have a solid foundation that we could work from than to be constantly finger wagging in DC or finger wagging across the aisle saying it's your guys' fault when we need to get stuff straight in our own homes or in our own communities.
Yeah, it
So,
starts in the family unit. Starts in the
yeah,
family first. Uh, you look at all the horrible things happening around the world and in our country, and if there was a father in the home, I'm not saying it would have completely changed the outcome, but it would have helped a lot.
yeah.
And that's
Someone
it's a
get spanked a little more. Kidding.
yeah. I mean, yeah, we don't. I don't know
It's
how
like
we
it's
want to
okay.
get our punishment with our kids. Yeah,
No, it's fine.
our sons are more like, if it's like, you send them to their room and they're like, it's the end of they start
End of
crying, it's the end
time.
of the world.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we've never had to do any of that, but they also respect us and they understand that, the relationship between me and my wife is the most important thing. They can't interrupt when we're talking. They
right.
have a respect for, uh, both of us and for each other, and they understand the value of life, and they also are in a Christian household too. So there's a lot of, just in our home, moral values that are instilled in them, so that when they go out into the world, they don't do crazy or stupid stuff like you're seeing on the
Right.
news. And, as far as like, they're homeschooled, so we have them in other activities outside of the home. We're not just doing everything in this little bubble. So my sons are in martial arts. They do like a mixed martial arts class twice a week. One of my sons was just got done with like a basketball thing. So they're interacting with they're interacting with
Yeah.
other people. They're also being instilled, other values instilled that are just like not necessarily Christian moral values, but align with Christian moral values like, responsibility, discipline.
Yeah.
Like if you want to pass your belt test, you have to practice. You
Right.
have to get a sign off from your teacher, which is their mom in this case. But if you get a sign off from the teacher that you're not getting in trouble in class, you're paying attention, you're doing the work, and they're taught all sorts of, they have definitions that they have to learn, and all the definitions are like, moral character definitions that they have to
Right.
memorize and understand. And that's not even the, like, that's not the martial arts part. They're also learning how to defend themselves, from full grown adults that might want to take them away or do something horrible to
Yeah.
them. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. My son and I do jujitsu. I kind of took a break from it for a little bit, but I'm going to get back into it. But at our jujitsu school, our gym, there's these two girls, and they actually go to a school less than half a mile from here. And they were walking home. Both of the girls take jujitsu. One's 9, one's 7, I think. And this guy tried abducting one of them, the younger of them, and they fought off this full grown adult. And then, so the guy wasn't able to abduct him. The guy ran away. The girls gave a good enough description and even pointed him out after the cops found him and like got the guy locked up. So it was in the local news, and our jujitsu professor was kind of highlighted them at school one night. But this type of stuff, like it's kind of you think I would think like this is a good neighborhood. It's never going to happen here until it does, and then you're like, well, I'm glad I'm ahead of the curve here and my kids are doing something to better themselves now. I would hate to be in that position and they not know what to do. That's terrible. So fortunately for these girls, they did know what to do, and they were um, confident enough in themselves that they could act on that.
Yeah,
So
it's sad. It's not like when we were kids, no helmets, riding our bikes until the lights came on, and then we got home. And I,
yeah,
the only time there was ever a problem was when like I was living with we were living with our mom. We like parents were divorced, so we went back and forth between houses every other weekend. But my mom was at like in a trailer park, right, in a not a great area. And one time I was riding my bike, and this guy was like tried to roll down the road. Hey kid! And so I just like I booked it on my bike. Yeah, there was like a development of like nice houses right by the trailer park that they were building, but there was like all this construction stuff, and there was a big hill with a jump at the end that a bunch of us kids made. So I like all that. I was like, I knew if I got there, I could go down that hill, and there's no way that guy was going to catch me. So I did that and never saw him again. But yeah, that was the closest thing, and that was like probably in my like early teens that happened. So other than that, I never had any issues. It
yeah,
was fine, and like it's something you didn't have to worry about, like kids getting snatched up. And now it's a big problem.
yeah. It's I'm smiling over here not because of that story, but I just think I know the questions that I sent you, kind of what I envision tonight, how I envision tonight going, and I feel like, oh, this is so entertaining. Like I'm learning so much about you, and there's a lot of great stories that we're sharing back and forth. But it is not at all
It has
like I
nothing
thought.
to do with the questions. That's what I said at the beginning. I said, if you need to do like other takes or whatever, just let me.
No,
Yeah,
I love this. This is. I mean, it's well, I'm in law enforcement. I've taken a lot of interviewing type classes, but it's more like interrogation type of interviews. But I still love talking to people, and it's kind of like socially engaging for me. And so I try to, okay, well, like I'm okay with going whatever direction the conversation goes. So I love this. One of the questions that I did have, and it's going to be awkward going back to it now, but I'm curious with your upbringing and being a family man and Christian values, like what got you then to start a YouTube channel?
that's a good question. I mean, how dare you? How dare you ask me that? Yeah, so it wasn't that I had a lot of time I could kill,
Right.
right?
It
Because
never is.
I have a I might be offending some YouTubers. I have a real full time job apart from this. So I have a 9 to 5, 7:30 to 4:30, and it's like just a regular. I'm a regular guy. Like I'm not prior military, law enforcement. Never have been. Probably never will be. That's just not for me. But um, I have a regular job. I have a family. I have other hobbies, and I'm just a regular guy. So I originally, because I was a big consumer of YouTube, so I work from home 100% of the time. I'm in like the software space, so I don't have to be in a physical office. And while I'd be sending out emails or doing whatever software stuff, software people do, I would have YouTube playing, and guns are a big passion of mine. Second Amendment, I'm a huge Second Amendment advocate, and I would watch channels, videos, reviews on gears because I want to make sure with my hard-earned money that I'm spending wisely. I want to make sure
Right.
I'm getting what works with whatever I have, whatever systems I'm running. And I would watch videos, and I'd be like, I really want to like if they could just do a close up on this is the thing I want to see. This is what the video is about, but I can't see the thing they're trying to show because it's like the lighting's off, or it's like it's in a weird angle and you
Right.
can't see it. Or I want to know about every part of the thing, and I just wasn't seeing that. So I was like, well, I'm going to make videos that will answer the questions that I had when I was watching videos because it was super frustrating to me to watch. And I was like trying to get the information. Like there's articles, they don't say what it is. There's all the
Yep.
videos, they don't say what it is. The product pages on websites of products is like, marketing material. So that doesn't help.
Right.
So yeah, I just wanted to make something that if I was looking for videos, I could find the information that I wanted. And the only way for me to do that was to make the videos myself. So I started doing that. And I also just wanted to be just a helpful resource for people like me that aren't aren't in the military, aren't law enforcement. Even the ones that are, they might be able to get some out of it. But I wanted to do videos from a perspective of I'm just a regular guy
Regular
like
guy.
you trying to figure out how to best spend my money to be prepared so that I can protect my family, my community, uh,
Yeah.
potentially my country if it comes to that. And yeah,
Wolverine.
that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, and one of your recent series, I would say, or maybe your most recent series, is the basement gym that you built out, and this really got the motivation for me to do a at home gym that has been super beneficial for our family. Right after we finished it, my daughter was in a car accident. And so a lot of the exercises that they were showing her at PT and at the chiropractor, she's able to do here at home. And that was the motivation behind it was like talking to you about it because I saw all your workouts that you were doing and your plate carrier and with the barbell. Like, okay, well, if you can do this, well, if you had a little bit of money to invest, what should I do? So I really enjoyed that series, but that really ties in with the whole self-sufficient idea that you posed earlier, right?
Yeah, if you are in shape, if you're healthy, if you are fit, and I would even say if you're stronger than the average American male, right? Because unfortunately, we have a society and culture of immediate gratification, not really wanting to sacrifice anything short term for long term gains, and just like an entertainment mentality. Like, I just want to be entertained all day. I want to work on
Yeah.
myself. I don't want to do anything. I just want to do my whatever job for whatever company, make someone else a lot of money, and then sit down on the couch and be a potato. So one of the big things I would say in terms of self sufficiency is that if you are in shape and you are healthy, you can do everything better. All of the things that encompass just being a good everyday human being, being a good father, a good husband, being a good member of the community, all of the things that you would be doing, you can do better when you're in better shape because you are improving your mental health. You're getting not only chemically, you're getting the endorphins of exercise, which just
Hmm.
give you a better mood, but you're also seeing you're working towards a goal. So you're putting in work, you're staying busy, so you don't have just like idle thoughts or just you're not just being lazy. You actually have goals. So you're putting those goals in place. You're achieving those goals, and then you're also improving your physical health, obviously, which is another thing that's great. But then if you're thinking of it from the aspect of like, oh, I'm a gun guy, so I'll just shoot him. Like I don't need to be able to do anything. Well, you might be in an encounter where they're right on top of you. How are you going to get them off of you if you can't even do a
Right.
push up, right? Or uh, you might be in a situation where you are getting shot at and you have to run to cover. If you can't run without pulling your hamstring or being so winded that you can barely breathe, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And just being able to lift weights, run, have cardio, it just makes it easier for you to do all the cool gun guy stuff that a lot of people, on Instagram are doing, right? So
Yeah.
if you want to be like those people, I guess that helps, I guess. But in a more practical sense, if you are actually needing to use your gun to defend yourself, it's going to be a lot easier to deal with the stress if you're putting your body through stress. It's going to be a lot
Right.
easier to be not gassed out in 5 seconds of any type of physical altercation if you have good cardio and you're able to lift weights and have big muscles. And also, you're making yourself less likely to be a target. If you're like I'm 6'3", and I'm like 180 pounds of mostly muscle. No one's going, oh, I'm going to pick that guy. Like,
Yeah.
who am I going to mug? Oh, that guy. if you're situationally aware and you're not a total slob out in public, they're probably not going to pick you. I mean,
Right.
it's statistically it's improbable, but it still could happen. But more than likely, they're not going to pick you. It's just like when you're setting up your home for home defense. If you have exterior lighting, you have an alarm system, you have a sign for the alarm system, you have it in a you basically you want to make your house look like, okay, I'm not going to pick that house. I'd rather maybe rob those people or those people
Right.
than that house. And that's essentially what you're doing with your body.
Yeah, I like that idea. So again, kind of what we talked about before, like having a solid foundation that you can build off of. This idea of making yourself a hard target. I never thought of it that way, but we talk a lot about like school shootings and things like that in terms of why don't we make the school a hard target instead of an easy target, right? Most schools are gun-free zones, and of course, a shooter's going to go, well, I want to go to the place that I know no one's going to shoot me back at. Why would they do that? Why not make it a hard target? And in the same idea, at least from what you're saying, how I'm interpreting that is make yourself a hard target. Get physically fit, be situationally aware, be your own. You still with us?
Yeah, you
Black,
just cut
went
out.
away for a while. So how to be yourself, how to protect yourself and your family with your fists or your firearm. Make yourself a hard target. I love that mentality.
Plus, I just
So
love lifting weights.
yeah,
I mean, most of the things that I do, I started because they were fun, not because I was like, well, this is, I've got to be prepared. No, it was just I
right.
enjoyed doing them.
I love well and taking something that you enjoy doing and then sharing that with the world. Not a lot of people can do that successfully. And so I'm very very happy to see your YouTube channel growing. I know I was taking a look at it today, and like your MMP 2.0 review is almost 80,000 views now, and there's been tons of stuff. I watch all of your basement gym videos. I love those. Um, I'm constantly adding stuff to my own gym. I got a curl bar now added. I got some bands to help with pull-ups, and um, yeah, man. Even if all I can say is that you've inspired me to be better, I hope that brings some semblance of joy, and you could pat yourself on the back and tell you that the betterment of my family is due to the inspiration that you've brought to the table. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you, and those are my favorite comments to read. They're like, oh well, even if it's just something like oh I'm so glad you made this video. I finally figured out how to attach his handguard or whatever. It's
Yeah.
that, and yeah, I mean, just the fact that people are actually liking a video is still wild to me. I'm not that big of a channel, so I'm just like, oh wow, like that many people watched it. That's insane. So yeah, and anything I can do to help, that's why I do it. So
Yeah.
uh, I I I promised I wouldn't cry.
Well, as we wrap it up here, where can people find more information about you? I know you're on Instagram, but are you on Twitter? Are you on any other socials?
I'm technically on Twitter, though I haven't posted anything yet, and
Okay.
I've had it for a while. I need to just do the first like awkward. How do I set this up? How do I get this on here? Because usually what I'll do, I have when I film a video, I have the edited video just ready to put wherever. So I'm not having to necessarily like share a YouTube video on an Instagram or on Twitter or Rumble or whatever.
Right.
So I'm on Rumble, but like I don't really know how viable Rumble is. Really, it's like I think like the MMP series, you were talking like 80,000. I probably have like 500 views on Rumble for that or something.
Yeah.
So it's not that great, but it's just another platform in case YouTube gets like super tyrannical, like even more so than they are with a lot of the content that we do.
Yeah.
Uh, I have another place, and then Twitter. I technically do have a thing on there. If you want to follow me, it's Your Favorite Libertarian on there as well. Instagram as well, same handle. And but YouTube's the big one. That's where I'm I'm primarily posting. I really just post on Rumble for my mom because she's not a fan of YouTube.
Okay.
So she just watches my video on there. She just goes, "Oh, I did. Did you upload it?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I gotta upload to Rumble, right?" So I'll put it on there. But that's pretty much it as far as where everyone can find me. And don't try to find me anywhere else because I'm a
Yeah.
libertarian and I like my privacy.
Awesome. Well, Nate, again, I appreciate you taking some time and sharing with our viewers or our listeners. Um, yeah. Any other comments before we close it out here?
Um, I'm just
Put
really
you on the spot.
excited. I'm really excited for finishing the basement gym so that I can actually start putting the equipment in there because I've
Yeah.
had these boxes of equipment for over a year now because I bought them in a Black Friday sale last year. So that'll be cool. And it's really close. Barn doors are getting sanded and stained hopefully soon, and then we'll pretty much be done. So stay tuned for that. And then also, I'm really excited for SHOT Show because this will be my first year
Yeah.
doing SHOT Show.
Yeah. And we're, so for those of you that may not be aware, we're bunking together.
Yeah, gonna be roomies.
Awesome, Nate. Well, again, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you spending time with us. And that's all for us today on today's episode of Everyman's Arsenal. We'll catch you guys next time.